But we're going to AEW.
That's right. Where Tony Khan can afford an AI Phil Rizzuto if he wanted one.
Oh, boy, they need some AI. They need to do the Thunderdome thing, don't they, in AEW now? Where they just put a screen on the chairs, the empty chairs in the arena, and put up somebody's face, but it'd be the same four faces. Either that, or what would it be like if you had seats with screens on them and they were empty? There's no people showed up to be on screen.
They would call it Collision.
AEW on September 11th, and there's a line there on that date that this television program occurred, but I don't want to cross any lines in delivering it, so I'll let you all do your own in your head. But the scene of the disaster was Rupp Arena in Lexington, Kentucky, about 65 miles down the road from me. And I mean, we're going to talk about some of the things that went on the television program, but basically to ask questions about what the fuck is going on. And then we'll talk about the fact that there was nobody there, and then we'll discover whether anybody watched or not with the ratings. But this was one of the most bizarre television shows I've ever seen. It's like they just said, everybody just go out there and come up with something to do on your own and do it. Because the shit didn't even match what was going on beforehand. What... Are they serious with this?
They being he? Yes.
They being he? Well, let's sit down and recoup the various recap. Maybe recoup.
How do we recoup? I'd like to know.
How do we recoup our time for watching this thing? So they used the parking lot a lot. The parking garage they got there at Rupp Arena. It's a beautiful building.
There were more people in the parking lot.
Yeah, because the attendants were back there. And the cold open of this thing was the plumber speaking in riddles while spooky music was playing in the background. And he was, egos are out of control. I can't take it anymore. And he's talking about his lordship. He's referring to Regal, who's not there anymore, but my mentor. But also he said, I am the one true king of these lands. Diplomacy has failed. I choose war. Are we going to have to watch this fucking movie that he's ripping off so that we know what in the hell this gibberish is?
He may be ripping off more than one movie at the same time at this point. It seems like I think what happened is Bryan Danielson decided to give Jon Moxley a copy of War and Peace. And now Moxley is just ripping off dialogue right from it. Because if he's a badass, he shouldn't be talking this way. Where it's like, I'm going to convince you I know big words that I heard Danielson say in the car.
Well, we went from that as the cold open, and the plumber will be back later on in this program, to seeing Darby Allin skateboard into the garage. And then we had Tony Schiavone in the ring with Christian Cage and his various ephemera, Nick Plane's mom, and the Lizard. And Tony Schiavone, this was a night of mistakes and fuck-ups and brain farts and delirium, where you imagine that some of these people may have a high fever. Tony Schiavone says that Christian Cage has a contract to get a world heavyweight title match whenever he wants. All you got to do is stand there and just pitch it to him, Tony. My God. But then Christian Cage catches it and drops it on the ground. He's trying to paint the picture that he finally made the Dino douche there get aggressive and be a monster on purpose, when in the big multi-person, whatever the fuck they call it, match they had yet, when Kill Switch grabbed me for the choke slam, I looked in his eyes, and then Christian said, and the light bulb finally went off. Not the light bulb finally went on. The light bulb finally went off.
I didn't even pick up on that.
That's exactly what he said. The light bulb finally went off. Yes, he went from having some semblance of thought in his head to being completely blank and vacant. And then, so now he's a monster and a killer because his light bulb went off. And they did small whats from the small crowd, but they kind of started chanting Luchasaurus a little bit. But Cage wants to take the world title from Bryan Danielson, and he's like as you've said before, a Bond villain, but it was a good heel promo, especially in this, judging in this atmosphere. But if a good promo falls in an empty forest, does it draw any money? Did I miss any of the nuances of this thing?
Probably not. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I like Nick Wayne in this role. As far as all the young, skinny guys on the roster, I think he's the least offensive because you buy him as a young punk. I shouldn't say punk. You buy him as a young...
Punk,
or someone who just doesn't do right, or someone who makes bad decisions and they have a mom leading him along the way. You buy him in that role. He works.
You buy him as a juvenile delinquent.
Yeah, I hate to put it that way, but yes.
They should have him flattening tires and like keying doors in the parking lot. And smoking behind the barn.
When you're in high school, there were certain kids you always went to school with, and then one day they were gone, and you're like, oh, did they leave school? Oh, no, they got sent to Nike. What's Nike? That's where they send the bad kids. Oh, okay.
Is that how they make those shoes?
I don't think that's the same sweatshop, no.
Anyway, so Renee Moxley Good was in the back with Don Fallis and Kyle Felcher and Take a Shit and Osprey. And again, help me try to, what the fuck? Don wants Osprey to team with Kyle tonight in the Gauntlet match for the World Tag Team title shot. Osprey is already not the international champion. And he's a singles, and he's a baby face, but Kyle is a heel, except he's friends with Osprey, but Don is still allegedly a heel manager, isn't he? Because these are all the people he supposedly manages. And then he's trying to call in a favor from Osprey that Osprey allegedly owes Don. But then Kyle pleads with him in a voice I can only describe as a Dickens urchin begging for more gruel.
You're my friend, be my partner.
Yes, and please, may I have some more? And so Osprey agrees, and then everybody hugs him, including the heel manager, except for Take a Shit, who is not happy and stares at him instead of giving him a hug. Who's the fucking baby faces here? Help me.
Again, the booking is completely ass backwards and wrong, but there are individual good performances within that. I think Takeshita's perfect in that role. It's just that
of not saying anything and having a sour look on his face, I agree with you.
I've been thinking for a while they're going to set up something where Callis and Fletcher turn on Osprey, and it'll probably happen in that Bucks match, you would think. And then they'll be more clearly defined as heels, you would imagine. But for right now, and for the last several months, they're tweeners. They're there, and he's a heel manager, and there's no redeeming value to him, but he's also friends with the good guys.
And he's benevolent to the people in his charge.
Like when Gary Hart returned to World Class in '84 and he wasn't exactly a heel manager, but the fans didn't accept him, so they didn't cheer him. And then he became a heel manager again.
And then he sliced open the missing link. Anyway, they had a TNT title match. Now Jungle Jackoff, old Mr. Perry, he has to pull into the garage or the parking lot or wherever, I guess, of the arena in his dingy black scapegoat van. So somehow, apparently, instead of being a celebrity who flies first class or at least business across the country to wrestle on this national television promotion, he's driving this goddamn Chester the Molester van across the country in the highways and byways to get to the shows.
And again, is one thing if they show a van like that pulling up to the show and a Nick Camarado or something gets out of it. It's Jack Perry. He's a little kid. He looks ridiculous. And then there's the match.
Well, and then the spooky metal music, though, where he walks out and it's very ominous, and there's 2,700. Well, no, I think, what was it, 2,700 tickets distributed. Who knows how many took them up on it, but there's, in a building it seats 23,000 people for basketball, and he's walking out there and there's murmuring. How the fuck? And the guy holds the sign up that we would see a lot over the course of the night. Jim's not going to like this, across from the hard camera. And they were very perceptive on their timing on when I wouldn't like something. And it's Jack Perry against Leo Rush. Wasn't Leo Rush a fucking heel? Or was that one of the jobs he had that he quit or got fired from or retired from the business from beforehand?
I think he was a heel, but he was also kind of buddying up to, at the time, way back, like Top Flight or something. He was acting like a babyface to lull them into. I don't know what happened. He got fired, and now he's back. And I thought he was a heel again, but Jack Perry's a heel.
Well, anyway, Perry jump-started it, and they went right to the break. They must have been running long after that dissertation earlier. And when they came back from the break, boom, 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 and I'm just listening. Perry gives Rush the Snapdragon suplex, and there's silence. And then Rush runs to the ropes and jumps, and he does these unorthodox moves, taking advantage of his microscopic size and his quickness. And he's going to do some kind of ass first bounce off the bottom rope and bounce backwards into giving Jungle Jack off a flying stunner. And he stumbled and fell on his ass, but the counter to the flying stunner was going to be that Jungle Jack was going to run and give him the knee, right? Coming off for the stunner. But since he stumbled and fell on his ass, Jack went over the top of him and fell on top of him. And then he jumped up and hit him with another knee. 1, 2, 3. And then, was it because that he had completely missed his goddamn first attempt because the guy stumbled? Or is this part of his character that Perry just then, as soon as 1, 2, 3, he rolled out and walked out to no response, didn't look back, didn't milk the camera, whatever the fuck, just like, fuck. And boom. And then I guess they may have wanted to address that or whatever the fuck. Marvez, Bar Brady, was in the back where Perry walks up and says, "People like me are crucified in this life so we can be worshipped in the next."
What?
No, yes, that's what he...
Yeah, no, I know that's what he said. That was my reaction. What?
Yeah.
You?
People like you are parking attendants in this life.
What does he mean? Skinny people that grow their hair long and grow beards?
I don't know. I don't know.
The children of rich, successful celebrities? We will always be crucified. We're not Nepo babies. We're scapegoats. Maybe that's really what he's talking about with the whole scapegoat thing. He's rejecting being a Nepo baby, gets the worst looking, like you said, Chester the Molester van, paints it all black, drives into the parking lot, jumps out with his belt, jumps back in. Maybe that's what it is.
I'm still thinking that somebody needs to ask the local authorities to look in the back of that van. Anyway, speaking of imitation badassery, Renee Moxley-Good was in the back with Hangnail, Adam Page. And he does some more dramatic acting. And then, just because obviously it called for it, even though they don't usually do this, after his interview, he walks off and they just follow him with the camera. And he walks past a bunch of random job guys. And he's giving out the intimidating looks, and then suddenly he comes face to face with Jeff Jarrett. And Jeff Jarrett, it cuts a promo where he basically psychoanalyzes him and tells him what's wrong with him and that his toughest opponent is going to be the man in the mirror. And then Paige punches him and tosses him over some chairs. And Karen and the jobbers all come in, and Paige walks away. But regardless of whether Paige's acting is bad or the whole thing is preposterous or what, it's kind of a moot point. Again, this show, everybody's brain farts, everybody's quality control. I'm surprised there wasn't another fake drywall wall in this. If you watch this segment, in the back of this, there are like 5 or 6 building employees, like the concession people or somebody in fucking, maintenance, whatever. They're sitting in a row of seats against the wall, and they're just watching this. And Brian, what happens if you are an employee of an arena backstage, or if you're an employee of any company anywhere, and within 20 or 30 feet of you, 2 guys suddenly start fucking wailing away at each other at a big fight? You don't necessarily break it up, but don't you stand up and assess whether you need to get further the fuck away?
Yes, absolutely.
No, they're sitting there. You see one guy's with their legs crossed. They're sitting there watching this shit. Right? They couldn't say, "Hey, can you please get out of the way of our shot?"
Well, maybe it's because if you're in the AEW backstage area, you're used to seeing these kind of skirmishes break out. It's not a big deal.
It's just, what the fuck? They can't even look through the viewfinder of the camera and think, oh, if those 6 people are sitting there while this big fight's going on, all these people are running up yelling, and they're sitting there like they're watching a movie, maybe we should ask them to goddamn move over or change our camera angle. Did you watch
Are you excited for the Jeff Jarrett Adam Page thing that they're, for some reason, kind of building up? It's not just this thing, it's been several incidents now.
I don't know what they're doing. And Jeff was he did a great promo one week, and it got him over as a babyface, and then they've been beating him up ever since. I don't know where that's supposed to fucking go.
Well, to be fair, he also co-hosts the pre-show with Renee and RJ.
Renee and RJ.
And Double J.
And Double J. And OJ. All right. Anyway, Private Party and Commander with Alex. Did you watch the breakdancing entrance by the babyfaces?
Yeah, I guess they needed to have something new for Alex to do since the Lucha Brothers are going to WWE and they didn't take him. And now he's with these guys, and you say their breakdancing was his that really stood out.
Well, he made old Ray Gun look good. But here's Private Party again. It's just silliness. And Commander there for whatever that's worth, and Alex is dancing like a fucking fool. And they're in an empty building, and the people are in and there's 3 opponents in the ring, and suddenly the plumber and Marina Schaefer and Pac and Claudio come in and beat up all 6 of them. The job guys in the ring and the fucking 3 baby faces, and I guess the manager, and then they just were gone. They just left. They took their ass whipping and departed. And then they start doing I can't even call it a promo because it's just nonsensical. Pac is saying, "This company is broken." No response from the people. "We are inevitable." Silence. "Diplomacy has failed. This company is ours." And people are, what the fuck?
What diplomacy? What the fuck are you talking about? Kissinger?
It's goddamn Brzezinski. He took over for him.
Or Neville Chamberlain. I'm not sure who he is.
And then Pac left, and the plumber wandered around, kind of, and then he left, and there was the sign, "Jim's not going to like this," and the people are like, Anyway, should we move along?
Well, what do you think? Again, this has been playing out now. John Moxley invading the show, even though he's one of their wrestlers, and beating everyone up and saying that it's not their company anymore. And he wants to speak to Darby Allin. And again, Pac now gets on the mic, and there will be no diplomacy, be no embassy, there will be no ambassador. I don't know what's happening here. Whatever direction they're going to go, and we don't know yet. There's still people that think Shane McMahon will be tied to this.
Yeah, well, and there's still more shit going on with Moxley and Darby on this program, but go ahead.
But just what do you think of this tone? Because like you said, and it's not just this, so this isn't really singled out, the crowd's dead. The crowd's not reacting. And it seems like these guys, specifically Moxley, is performing for himself.
Yeah. They're auditioning for
reading poetry, whatever he's saying, and
they're auditioning for things they'd like to do in the future whenever the billionaire finally gets tired of paying them. You know, we've seen the WWE create intrigue. Who's going to turn in the bloodline? Which way is that going to go? Whatever. But this is speaking in riddles when people don't even understand the particular riddle game they're playing, or where any of this is coming from, so that you can explain it to them afterwards, maybe, whenever whatever needs to be revealed is revealed, and then there's an aha moment. Oh, now we understand all of this. Except, are we even going to ever get that moment? Or is this just they're being overly dramatic because they think it's cool? They're all getting a chance to be creative. But no. The people were sitting there going, what the fuck is going on here? We don't understand this. We can't even hear Wild Thing anymore.
Yeah, by the way, it seems like security would have a pretty good idea of where he is. He just walks through the crowd from the same place. If you had to stop him from attacking people, it wouldn't be that hard.
But then we wouldn't be able to figure out what is going on here and whose company it is. And they better hope they got Shane McMahon to make them forget how this whole thing started whenever I don't know whether they'll ever tell us or whether he'll just keep going on acting like this and they'll never make it clear.
Well, what was next on this show?
Well, I'll tell you that Chris Jericho wants the $7,000 for his jacket that Orange Cassidy dumped on him 4 years ago.
4 years ago. Why is this a thing now?
Because he wants the money. He's hard up.
I want the $7,000 from 4 years ago? Now? Jesus.
Yeah.
The lack of creativity in some of this stuff is amazing.
Well, we'll hear more about that later on, because this show was just the same people over and over with the same grievances. Ricochet got a big singles match with Sammy Guevara. Brian, remember when Sammy Guevara was over?
I do. I remember when we thought he was going to be one of the breakout stars, and
you remember when they were standing up and down screaming until they got to know him personally, and he kept continuing to be a dipshit over and over. They have all successfully teamed up to negate Sammy Guevara. He came out and they're like, nothing. And they have the match, the video game match. Sammy backflipped.
Wait, did you even say who he's wrestling?
Ricochet and Sammy Guevara.
Okay, I didn't know if you said Ricochet.
Yes. Well, yes. I think I said it. Well, God damn it. I'll say it again. Ricochet and Sammy Guevara. And again, they have the video game match. Did you see Sammy backflip off the entranceway and almost break his own leg?
Yes. He's loco.
Oh, and he made sure to show us at first. And again, people used to love that, right? They popped on a guy diving off the goddamn balcony, but then they didn't care. And I guess, did he finally get enough heat on himself that they just said, fuck it, we're giving up on Sammy?
I don't know, but I think a lot of the problem beyond personal things or behavioral things was they tied him to Jericho for too long. And they broke him away once, and then they brought him back to being Jericho's lackey.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, one of the only things left to do is have him do a feud with Jericho and beat him. And the last thing anyone wants to see is him feud with Chris Jericho. So it creates a real problem.
Well, and also Ricochet, the new high-priced high flyer, he won the match with 2 kicks to the head and some kind of suplex. He does all the dives and all the flips, and then his finish, I'm going to kick him in the head and suplex him. And he just kind of beat him flat, but then rigor mortis came in and speared Ricochet. So this, again, he's one of the new masked luchadors, but he's the big one, the fairly thick fellow. And when he spears Ricochet, Ricochet sells that like grim death, and Sammy comes back in with a chair and saves the guy that he just got beat by. And then Mortis leaves, and Sammy and Ricochet shook hands. So, what the fuck?
Does Ricochet seem special or just like one of the guys there already?
He's one of the guys. Have we heard him speak yet?
We've seen him stare at a TV monitor. And they're going to do him and Ospreay. That's, one of the big matches that they're excited about.
I mean, we've heard him speak in the WWF, so I'm not excited to hear him speak, but he's in a new company, and he's already going 15 minutes with middle card or unimportant people, and, and he stands around and watches TV every once in a while. And gets speared by a fucking miscellaneous masked Mexican guy. So then Renee Moxley-Good was in the back with Okody, who was trying to emote himself. Now they've got him trying to act, and he was fake, almost crying because of how, it was a tough fight, but he managed to win, and then he, laughed about it. And then Don comes in. He's a heel manager. He's got his boy Take with him and says, hey, you didn't beat my guy. And Okody calls Don a bitch, and then Take steps up in Okody's face. And who's the baby face here that we're supposed to be pulling for, rooting for? The heel that's lined up with the heel EVPs, or the goddamn heel that's lined up with the bald-headed evil heel manager of the Phallus family? Any ideas?
No.
And then we were at 9 o'clock, and here came Darby Allin, wandering to the ring, just blah, blah. And, of course, Moxley has been referring to him and saying he needed to talk to him over the past week or two. So Darby says, somebody's been looking for me while I'm right here. That is the extent of everything he said when he came out. And he didn't even say that with as much enthusiasm as I just had. And then Moxley's new music plays, and here he comes with Marina Shafir wandering through the arena. And Shafir goes face to face with Darby. She's got bigger arms than he did, and he was wearing a big pink bushy hoodie. And then, Brian, is this another? Is it so smart, so inside that I don't even understand it, much less the average wrestling fan, where they talk about how Moxley says nothing has changed between me and you. Any kind of half-ass has been putting him over, but whatever the fuck. But then Darby cut him off, and I used to be a homeless dishwasher. And AEW gave me everything, and you were my hero because you wouldn't change for anybody. You still do indies. Oh, joy. But then he bitches him out about what he did to Brian. But you used to be my hero. Don't we hear that all the time now? And or I used to be a homeless dishwasher.
We just heard the hero thing or the I look up to you thing from Britt Baker in the Mercedes Moné contract signing a few weeks ago.
But I mean, most people would go, what the fuck? You still do indies. You're on national television. You're supposed to be a big star. What are you, a fucking idiot? But it's a hero type of thing, a noble thing for them, because he used to be a homeless dishwasher. So what do you want, Moxley, is what he's saying. So Moxley then, and Brian, this is where you got to help me and we got to help the viewers or the listeners or everybody. Everybody needs help. Moxley then says that Darby Allin was going to wrestle Bryan Danielson for the AEW title at Grand Slam, which is the Dynamite episode from the Arthur Ashe Stadium. But since Danielson is indisposed because of the plastic bag that was put over his head, apparently he's
tried to murder him.
Yeah, I tried to murder him.
They didn't try to injure him. They tried to murder him.
Yeah. So, and hey, Darby, you weren't ready to be the world champion anyway. So Moxley wants Darby to hand over his title shot that he earned with Bryan Danielson to him. But Darby says, well, I'm not just going to hand it to you. You got to do something about it. And Moxley says, okay, then in New York City on September the 25th, the title shot, they're going to fight for the title shot. The winner gets the title shot. And then Moxley talked in some more riddles and kept saying, I don't have time to explain to you now. I wish you had time to explain this to us. But I don't have time to explain, but this is the way it's going to be.
Why don't you have time? What else are you doing?
What else are you doing? Wandered around. Come out the entranceway instead of through the crowd and save you 5 minutes a night. But anyway, so now we've established that Bryan Danielson, the world champion, can't wrestle Darby Allin at Grand Slam because he's been bagged. So Darby is going to wrestle Moxley with the title shot against Danielson on the line. That's where we've got so far in this thing, right?
Well, technically, the title shot is on the line, but yes, against Danielson, it would appear.
Yes, they're going to wrestle for the title shot.
I can't explain anything else. I got to go. I got a cab waiting for me. I have to go.
But just remember, that's where we've left it.
Yes, Bryan Danielson cannot wrestle on Grand Slam, so we're going to get Darby Allin versus Moxley. And you know what? For AEW, that's a pretty big match. That's the match at Grand Slam because there's no Bryan Danielson.
For the kind of people that like that kind of thing, that's the kind of thing those people like.
Yeah.
So then we see dramatic foreshadowing in the back. Christopher Daniels is about to say something, and Nigel McGuinness comes in and he said, I've got to talk to Tony Khan. And then we have to set through Mariah May versus whoever. And the Buckaroos, Maddie and Nikki in the back with more of their blathering where they never really do anything anymore. And not that anybody's clamoring to see them do anything. But then we get, again, this show, the disastrous everything. Everybody's brain farting. Everybody's fucking up. Everybody's missing shit or saying something wrong. Or there's no people in the building. There's another Jericho promo about his jacket that, he wants the $7,000 for, that Pockets poured the orange juice on him. And he's stolen Pockets' backpack. And he showed a picture. In this guy's backpack, we're alleged to believe that he carries around an 8x10 framed picture of him with his former best friends. Remember Chucklefuck Taylor and Trent? And then Jericho is saying there's
Statlander. And
Statlander. Forgot, yes. I bet she'd like to forget she was in the photo. And then, as Jericho is knocking, there are no real friendships in pro wrestling. Everybody's going to use everybody, blah, blah, blah. Then there's Big Bill looking sideways at him, right? Like the light bulb went off. And he starts, so that's dramatic foreshadowing. But Jericho screaming, I demand the cash, I want the cash, I want the money for my jacket. So then suddenly Pockets pops up on the screen. And he's like, well, I don't have it on me, but my friends are bringing it. I got the cash. And then here comes Kyle O'Reilly and Mark Briscoe on, what is the technical term for that thing? The big, not a bulldozer, but the big machine with the big scoop on the front of it that you scoop up the dirt or stuff. It's not a tractor. They're not mowing anything or pulling anything. It's a self-propelled machine that has a scoop on the front, an earth mover type of thing, whatever the fuck. But it's got the big scoop. And in the big scoop is allegedly the $7,000 that Jericho wants for his jacket in coins, in quarters. And they dump it onto Jericho's Fancy Dan brand new Bentley that they've established that he pulled up in earlier in the program.
That he drove to Lexington in.
Well, it had Kentucky plates. It had Kentucky plates on it and a vanity plate that said, hi, guys, but it was GUY 5. So I don't know where is a gimmick plate, it has to be, but also where they got, but the point is they were trying to recreate Mr. McMahon's Corvette and Austin dumping cement in it, right? Same flavor of thing. That was supposed to be, but when they dumped the quarters into the car, nothing fucking happened to the car. It's a convertible. They just went into the seats. It may have scratched the paint. We couldn't tell. But it's not like the car exploded. They dumped. If that was $7,000 in quarters, that ain't a lot of goddamn quarters.
Yeah, Jericho had to sell the hassle of cleaning it.
Yes. He's like, how long it's going to take me to get this detailed? What the fuck? They dumped a load of quarters into a convertible and nothing happened to the fucking car. And the people, you can hear the people are like, ah.
It didn't fill up anything. It was just on the floor.
No, it was on the floorboards were horribly messy and there was stuff in the bucket seats. The fuck? If it had been comically overdone and they'd let loose an avalanche of coins that would completely fucking cover the whole car, that would have been a big fucking pop, right? But it was like, oh, we're going to fucking spill these in your floorboard.
And boy, this comedy troupe of Orange Cassidy, Mark Briscoe, and Kyle O'Reilly. It's a shame what they're doing to Mark Briscoe, but at least they're tying Jericho into this so you can get all the joke people in one angle.
Hey. Speaking of, well, it's not a joke because a joke has a punchline and you either get it or you don't, but this is still up in the air. Here's the second half of the conundrum we had earlier. Nigel McGuinness is in the ring. And he announces that since Darby Allin is now putting the shot he has at the world title on the line against Moxley, there's going to be no world title match. Well, there was supposed to be no world title match because Danielson just got a plastic bag put over his head, was the victim of attempted murder, which is why the Darby put the title shot on the line against Moxley loosely. But now he's put the cart before the horse, so since Darby's wrestling Moxley, there's going to be no world title match. And then he said, and Danielson's probably in an iron lung anyway, but the world champion should at least compete on the big Grand Slam. And then he keeps talking about Bryan Danielson's success should have been mine. And he's been making comments on the secondary television programs because Danielson and Nigel had a big rivalry in like 2009 and 10 in Ring of Honor. And they are playing off of that, and Nigel's the over-the-top heel now. And so they've been talking about that on the shows that Nigel is on. But does anybody, Brian, on Wednesday night know why that, or even if they've been watching these other shows, have they made it clear why Nigel McGuinness thinks that Bryan Danielson's success should have been his? But instead, Danielson went on to greatness, and Nigel had his career pulled out from under him because of a hepatitis diagnosis, with the WWE rescinding his contract.
I'll go a little further. Unless you were following Ring of Honor then, you may not even know he was a wrestler. Because other than his run as, Desmond Wolfe in TNA,
yeah,
he has only been used as a commentator on NXT and now here. And he's not even on the main show. He's on the Saturday show or one of the weekend shows, and maybe a few matches during the pay-per-view. That's it. So all of a sudden he's out there. They haven't done any video packages. And he used to look different with the hair, obviously.
He was blonde, now it's dark.
But the spiky hair, too.
Well, yes.
But there's a chance that they may be overthinking the amount of people that understand who he is and what his history is.
They are preaching to the choir without bothering to convert any of the heathens, is what you're saying.
There's a lot of heathens.
A lot of heathens out there. But so there's this guy that's never even on Wednesday night saying Bryan Danielson, the world champion, is afraid of me. But Tony Khan isn't afraid, and Nigel shows a contract. I've got this from Tony Khan at Grand Slam. It's going to be Bryan Danielson versus Nigel McGuinness. Now, and then they have since either put up a graphic or a tweet or whatever. Well, if Bryan Danielson is able to show up or wrestle or whatever, however they phrased it, but wait. So Danielson was going to defend the world title against Darby Allin, but then in the angle, Danielson is bagged and injured. So Moxley goes to Darby and says, since the world champion is indisposed, you can't wrestle him. How about we wrestle for the title shot against the world champion? And Darby agrees. But then Nigel comes out and says, well, the world champion should at least compete, even if he's not defending the title. How can you be cleared? Well, as long as you're not defending a title, go ahead on out there with that broken leg. You'll be fine. What? How? What?
And again, what was achieved with the Moxley turn or the Moxley attack on Danielson? They hit the ring, beat him to the point where he was just carried out of the ring by the team with an oxygen mask. They tried to suffocate him.
Yes.
If you want to beat him and get the match in a couple of weeks, why would you do that? And then he does this whole thing with Darby. He must feel like the biggest idiot of all. All of a sudden, Nigel got the title match.
Well, but also, and somebody that wasn't even there when all that happened to him is the one that gets a match with him on the big show, while the other fucking. So anyway,
it's interesting. I mean, the idea of Nigel returning. I know he did the match at Wembley, but him against Danielson. Not only is that the storied match, but that was a pretty physical feud. I mean, it was at times uncomfortable with some of the headbutts and stuff.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? Danielson's not what he was then, and he has to worry about all sorts of issues health-wise. And Nigel, I know he's had a lot of time off, but there's good and bad to that.
Well, and then we were at our main event, which was a tag team Casino Gauntlet match to determine who gets a title shot with the Hardley Boys. And at that point, I realized that this is going to go a while. And also, I had forgotten, when I'm watching this on DVR, I had forgotten to DVR the Modern Family that followed it. So I knew I wasn't going to see the finish. And I said, you know what? I just can't. I just can't. So, Brian, it's your duty to now tell me what happened in the tag team Casino Gauntlet match for the tag team title match with the Cucamonga Kids.
At Grand Slam.
At Grand Slam.
What happened was exactly what you thought would happen. What they telegraphed earlier in the show, because it sets up the Fletcher-Ospreay angle. They won the Gauntlet. Here's the order of the tag teams that came in. Number 1, FTR. Number 2, Ospreay and Fletcher. Number 3, The Righteous. Number 4, the Undisputed Kingdom of Taven and Bennett. Number 5, the Acclaimed. Number 6, the MXM Collection. Those are the former models.
Oh, boy.
Number 7, Top Flight. Number 8, the Outrunners. And number 9, the Grizzled Young Veterans, who immediately brawled on the stage with FTR, who eliminated themselves fighting with the Grizzled Young Veterans. Ospreay and Fletcher versus the Bucks at Grand Slam. Is that when you pull the trigger on Callis and Fletcher turning on Ospreay?
Well, one would imagine. Why would you go? But then again, you've got Ospreay that you've just spent millions of dollars on, trying to elevate. Instead of, people still need to be elevating him. He's only been there, what, full time, 6 months, or has it been? I don't know. What the fuck? He hasn't drawn a dime yet. At least he's the most likely to of any of Tony's recent signings between Cody and Mercedes and Ricochet. Ospreay has something, but goddamn, now he's going to be working with underneath guys that have suddenly got a tan and a new haircut. And yes, Fletcher is just all kinds of athletic, but who the fuck is he? We're not talking about Randy Orton here. So, and meanwhile, MJF is working with Garcia. And nobody would care about if they fucking lit him on fire in the town square.
No, he's not. MJF's gone. I don't know who Garcia's
Well, no,
with.
I'm saying MJF working with guys. He just did it. I'm saying you've got Ospreay working with underneath guys. You got MJF working with underneath guys. You got everybody that they have that has half a name is working with underneath guys.
And again, in terms of follow-up, where was Garcia? MJF's out of action. Yes. Garcia got what Wardlow never got, which was a definitive destruction of MJF, and he's gone.
No, remember, Wardlow got the diminutive. The diminutive.
It was diminutive, that's right, yes.
He powerbombed him, pinned him 1, 2, 3, and then by the time that MJF came back from whatever that hiatus was for, he was a top guy, and Wardlow was gone.
So you got that going on, the Fletcher Ospreay thing. The Bucks, you talked earlier about the crowd not reacting to stuff. The Bucks are the lead heel tag team who, I mean, how do you build up someone stronger than saying they're EVPs of the company? They could do whatever they want. They beat up the boss of the company. They take over the show.
They tried to put old Kenny Olivier out of commission permanently, remember?
The crowd sits there and doesn't react. And it's a harsh reality about the reality of the Young Bucks and their appeal and lack thereof to a lot of people. Their bad booking, their tiresome matches that we've all seen over and over and over again, and the excited young fan of 10 years ago who liked them on the indies, they've got other things to do with their life now. And it's not the Young Bucks.
And they've got a better wrestling promotion now to serve as an alternative instead of the shit show run by the evil billionaire that everybody hated.
I wonder if WWE is going to do anything different now with their tag team division. If the rumors are true and they got the Lucha Brothers and the Motor City Machine Guns, even though I'm not a big Lucha Brothers style fan, that's still pretty big to have those two tag teams. When you think of the limited amount of tag teams that have been pushed anywhere over the last 10 years, those are two of them. And WWE has a chance to remake their tag team division starting now better than the AEW one. They just added the Grizzled Young Veterans who are off NXT. FTR are dead in the water. The Bucks are dead, completely dead. Ospreay and Fletcher is a thing that's about to end, so it's not a thing. And then you have a bunch of tag teams, the Acclaimed are, you know,
they've even lost Uncle Dave. When, as they said about Walter Cronkite, when you've lost Uncle Dave, you've lost Middle America.
And then you had a couple other teams like the Outrunners who are only on like the B shows. They have no tag team division. It's awful. Taven and Bennett. Does anyone want to see Taven and Bennett?
Not anymore.
Well, that was Dynamite.
Well, before we talk about, because I want to talk about Rupp Arena, a place near and dear to my heart. But before we do that, what were the ratings on this fiasco? for the national audience before we examine how many people in Lexington didn't want to see it.
AEW Dynamite on September 11th on TBS, 8 to 10:08 p.m. On average, watched by 716,000 viewers.
Holy shit, they're back over 700,000. Hooray, hooray, hallelujah, hallelujah.
According to WrestleNomics, Dynamite was outranked in the key demo among cable originals in prime time only by MTV's Video Music Awards. So, and they did a 728,000 viewer average. Although you have to think a lot of that, if not the majority, skews young.
It positively stops young. I can't imagine anybody over the age of 30 watching anything with... I saw highlights on the news is what I did, so...
Well, let's go to the quarterly hours and see how they compare to previous weeks. These were compiled by WrestleNomics. Quarter 1, 8 to 8:15 p.m. The Moxley tape promo, the Christian Cage live promo, the Don Callis, Will Ospreay and family backstage promo, and the start of Jack Perry versus Lio Rush. 888,000 viewers.
Oh, okay. Well,
that is the high point for the episode, in case you didn't know.
I was figuring it was going to be. That is way better than they've normally been doing at the top of the hour, so I assume they got handed a nice little audience, and also from their average, I can see that it's going to start plummeting like a turd.
Well, the turd continues in quarter 2, 8:15, 8:30 p.m., the continuation of Perry versus Rush, with picture-in-picture, the Adam Page Jeff Jarrett backstage angle, 704,000 viewers.
Oh, good Lord. So 184,000 people in 15 minutes.
Well, we go to quarter 3, 8:30 to 8:45 p.m., the Private Party Commander Moxley, Marina Shafir, Claudio Castagnoli Pac live angle, an ad break, the Learning Trees backstage promo, and the start of Ricochet versus Sammy Guevara with picture-in-picture, 685,000 viewers.
Oh, good Lord. Okay, now they're down over 200,000 in 45 minutes, and they've almost got to go up. They have to go up at some point just to make their average now.
Well, we go to quarter 4, 8:45 to 9 p.m., the continuation of Ricochet versus Guevara, a recap of All In, an ad break, the Okada Takeshita backstage angle, and the start of Darby Allin's live promo, 691,000 viewers.
Well, that's up, but not very far. Maybe I'm wrong. That 888 for 15 minutes at the top will artificially inflate their average a good bit.
That 888 for 1 minute while the Big Bang Theory is still on is what it is. We go now to the big 9 o'clock hour, 9 to 9:15 p.m., quarter 5. Darby Allin and Jon Moxley's live promo, Christopher Daniels and Nigel McGuinness backstage, and the start of Mariah May versus Queen Aminata with picture-in-picture and full-screen ads, 720,000 viewers.
Okay, so they picked up 29,000 people at the top of the hour to bring them to the second highest quarter of the show so far at 720,000.
Well, we continue that into quarter 6, 9:15 to 9:30 p.m. The continuation of Queen Aminata versus Mariah May, the post-match, the Young Bucks backstage promo, an ad break, and the Learning Tree versus the Iron Savages.
Oh, boy.
680,000 viewers.
Wow, and
the low point in the key demo, it ties with another segment, but 251,000.
Well, that's the low point for the show so far, and they lost the 29,000 that they got back at the top of the hour, plus another 11,000 in that 15-minute segment.
Well, we go to quarter 7, 9:30 to 9:45 p.m. The Learning Tree Conglomeration live angle with Coins in the Car, an ad break, Nigel McGuinness's live promo, and Hook's promo on the street. 697,000 viewers.
And quarter 8?
Quarter 8, I remind you, we have an 8-minute overrun. Quarter 8, 9:45 to 10 p.m. The World Tag Team Title Contendership Casino Gauntlet match with picture-in-picture ads twice. 687,000 viewers. 8-minute overrun, match continues. 679,000.
Wow, so the overrun narrowly beat out quarter 6 for the lowest rating of the entire process there. They went from 888 to 679 over the course of the festivities.
And the key demo, the trend line, it's below the trend line. It really takes off below the trend line in the second hour, and a lot of that you have to think is because of the MTV Awards, because if you have to choose between that and this, you're going to go with that.
But more importantly, Rupp Arena and the crowd or lack thereof in that giant building. And we've talked about, I mean, they did 3,000, so a little less than 4,000 last time, but this is now less than 3,000, and that's tickets distributed. Who knows how many were paid for and who, radio giveaways, please announce us, get somebody to come down, whatever. I mean, 23,000 for basketball in Rupp Arena, and they've got a national television set up with 2,700 people in the building. Don't run Lexington if there's no other building. And it's not like that Lexington is a bad town. The WWE in the day, when they would do pay-per-views or big events there, have sold out Rupp Arena. And they have been there in more modern times where they do very respectably.
I have some recent numbers if you want them real quick for this.
Go ahead.
So we can go back to 2021, October 2021, WWE Super Show, that's a house show, in Lexington, 3,470 people. Or tickets distributed, I assume.
And that's horrible, too.
Then we go to January 25th, 2023, AEW Dynamite, so same event. And these are from WrestleTix, by the way. 5,494 tickets distributed. We now go to June 16th, 2023, SmackDown. 9,841.
That sounds better.
We now go to August 19th, 2023, as you mentioned before. Collision, 3,228. And finally, February of this year, WWE Raw, 10,108. That shows you how they got hot.
Well, and as a matter of fact, when they were hot in the early 2000s, they were still hot at the house shows, even when the wrestling war had run its course, and they did the all-time record gate in the state of Kentucky in Rupp Arena in Lexington. It did 20,000 people or whatever it was. And Lexington has always been a great market, and I've talked about when Jarrett opened it up. And the thing is, there was some element of, even though Lexington became a great market for the Memphis territory, as I'll tell you in a second, there was still some element of, boy, this is a big building, that kind of held the atmosphere down when there were 7,000 or 8,000 people in the place because it's so big. But we've told the story before. Lance Russell knew the guy who had become the program director at WLEX 18 in Lexington, the NBC affiliate, because the guy had come from Memphis. And Lance sold him on the idea, well, at Channel 5 in Memphis, WMC, we're doing these gigantic ratings Saturday morning at 11 o'clock. Over in Louisville, WAVE, Channel 3, the NBC affiliate, Saturday at noon. It's the most watched program in the time slot, Memphis Wrestling. Put it on here, and they did. And the thing of Rupp Arena was motivated to find events to put in there because it had just opened. I think, what was it, 75, 76, maybe, whatever. And the reason why 50 years ago there was a 23,000 seat arena in the state of Kentucky in a town of 160 or 70,000 people was because the University of Kentucky. The basketball team would fill it. People would fight over tickets still with that big of a building. But they couldn't get anything else, And UK still had the old Memorial Coliseum seated 10 or 12,000 or whatever, but wrestling had always traditionally been to one of the high school gyms in Lexington when they could get a spot. So Jarrett went to Rupp Arena, and they cut him a deal for Thursday nights once a month. They would put this giant, heavy, black stage curtain down the middle of the building, and they'd rent him half of it. And the ringside and lower bowl, just on half the building, would seat 6,000 people. And if you had to open up the upper deck, then you knew you had a really strong house, right? And then they could put however many more thousands in the upper deck. It was ridiculous. So Rupp Arena prospered because they had people paying for parking, and they had thousands of people buying hot dogs and drinks and beer or whatever. And their usher services and their building people and their concessions, they all had an extra night's work a month. So they didn't expect to rent the whole goddamn building every night of the week. And it still takes a pretty big event to fucking justify Rupp Arena, right? But anyway, when they got the TV, and then they went to Rupp Arena and said, we're on WLEX. There were 3 TV stations in Lexington at the time. And we'll come there once a month. They started building, and they always went up. The first show was 1,500 people. A second was like 1,350. And then it went to 2,600 people, and then 4,000 people, and then 5,000 people. And they started in spring of 78. By the early 80s, 81, 82, 83, the gates were bigger than they were in the Mid-South Coliseum in Memphis. Of course, they ran Memphis every week. They ran Lexington once a month, but Lexington, an average card would do 30 grand, and the big ones would do 40. And that's when the tickets were $5 and $6 a piece. Because in Memphis, they still had the $3 general admission. So if you had an 11,000 person sellout in the Mid-South Coliseum, the gate was 46 grand. You could do 40 grand in Lexington with 8,000 people. Having said that, from 1982 until today, a dollar then is worth $3 now. So you're talking about once a month, they would do an arena show where their gate was between 90 grand and 120 grand. So you do that 12 times a year. And that's why that Lexington was such an important town in the Memphis territory, and they didn't stop running it until they lost the TV in the late 80s. But you can't go in there. And that's another thing. Think about this, Brian. What was Jerry Jarrett's talent payroll on a show that would do the equivalent of a $120,000 house? Here, Tony has these multi-million-dollar talents and these national television stars and these widely known names, and didn't sell 3,000 tickets. And Jarrett would draw crowds of up to 8,000 people. I guarantee you he didn't spend more than 12 grand on the entire talent roster, including the referee and the goddamn guy hauling the ring. What? Help me try to understand the economics of all of this.
Well, I can't help you explain the economics of Tony Khan running the Rupp Arena again. There isn't a market I could think of for Dynamite or, even Collision or Rampage where they've gone up. Everything is, whenever we have the information, the previous time there was 500, 1,000 more people. Before that, 1,500, 2,000 more than that. Like, it's the same scale. It's going down. Meanwhile, WWE, even when they don't sell out, when they hit a market now, it's a big deal. The AEW, I think they've killed a lot of these places they've run, smugly thinking they were doing good shows when they were doing market-killing shows.
When is the last time they sold out a building that they ran, the actual building, not the setup they had, like a 12,000-seat building, we got it set up for 3,800. When is the last time they filled the building they were in, if the building they were in was filled?
I don't know for certain. It probably would have been one of the pay-per-view events either in Toronto or maybe California or, well, probably Toronto. I don't know.
Did you see on Twitter one of the excuses why the AEW apologists were saying the Rupp Arena live crowd was down?
No.
The killer on the loose theory.
Oh, yeah, I meant to ask you about that, because that's a big story in Kentucky right now, isn't it?
Well, yes, he's dead in the forest. He shot himself or done something to himself. Because, for those of you who don't know what's happening, since this is the United States of America, some nut went out and bought an assault rifle, an AR-15 or whatever, and perched himself on the side of Interstate 75 down in Laurel County around London, Kentucky, and was shooting at people as they went by. And apparently hit 5 or 6 of them, whatever. And they found out who he was. He took off. He left behind his car and at least one gun, but he took off, but they know who he is. And they're looking for him. But he's in the Daniel Boone National Forest. And so they're having to go heat sensing things, and they're going with machetes through the guy. I forget, it's like 200,000 acres of just, it's the Daniel Boone Forest, man. So they're pretty confident that he hasn't come out, but it's been a week now. And I don't care if you were fucking Rambo, you're not going to live for a week in the Daniel Boone Forest with they have no knowledge he had any kind of food prepared or whatever. And he's on foot. I think he probably killed himself, and they can't find him because he's under a log somewhere. But nevertheless, that's 60 miles from Lexington, and they canceled high school football games in London and the surrounding area, but Lexington life is continuing on. And I don't know that he would have been a threat to, if the place had been sold out for wrestling, what's he going to do? Come and try to lose himself in the crowd. But they said, well, there's a killer on the loose. No wonder nobody went. They can't just come out and admit they can't sell out a men's room with free condoms.
Well, what match on this show was the match that was supposed to draw someone? The tag team gauntlet? Ricochet versus Sammy? Jericho and his team against the Iron Savage? Like, what match was the draw?
Was any of that even advertised? Certainly not, because they didn't know they were going to have it a week or two ahead of time.
Now, if you are a hardcore AEW fan, you probably know there's going to be no MJF and no Swerve. You probably assume no Danielson. So then you're left with, who's the top draw on the show? Is it Moxley? Is it Darby? Darby gets a great reaction. I don't know what they said. Well, is it one of those, Darby will be here and he'll speak? But what are you actually billing them to the local? I don't know what their local promotion is, because we do hear from people who say they do a shitty job promoting locally. I've seen some good jobs of it in New York. I've seen MJF all over TV in New York in the past. But what are they doing in these markets, and what are you giving people? With WWE, you're going to see the stars. See, that's the thing. You know the stars will be there. With AEW, who's going to be there? What's the match? What's the match and the feud and the angle that's causing people to want to attend? There isn't. You're getting closer and closer to late 90s indie-sized crowds to sit there and just watch the show. And before they start moving everyone around to be all huddled together so it looks like you have a crowd, you see photos, just person here, person there. It looks like it would be fun to just have your own section and just chill out. Seriously, I'd love to do that. But they can't draw. And they're chasing away their viewers. And we're supposed to believe that everything's good. But nothing improves. Nothing is ever an improvement. And I said it before. Everyone's saying, oh, they'll get the TV rights deal, and then it's all profitable all of a sudden. That's not going to stop Tony's spending. That's going to increase it. He's going to do more stupid things. More songs that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. They basically just teased the final countdown again for Arthur Ashe.
You mean to tell me that they're going to book Arthur Ashe and have him come out to the song The Final Countdown?
Unfortunately, that's not possible, but any other Rupp Arena.
That's right. He's got some backbone and some principles. Arthur Ashe is not going to lower himself to wrestling for AEW. Well, I'll tell you what, I felt at one point during that program, Brian, like I ought to cut my throat. But you know what stopped me?
I don't know, no.
What stopped me was I've got the sharpest razor blades in the world, but they are German engineered into a beautiful non-cutting head, courtesy of our friends at Harry's. The safety razor, the 5-blade cartridge, you can't cut your throat with that. It will not allow you to sever your carotid artery or any of the valuable tendons and ligaments you have in your various orifices and or appendages. You can only have a close, comfortable shave with no nicking and irritation and aggravation. So I was unable to put myself out of my own misery with my beautiful 5-blade, ergonomically designed handled razor from Harry's. Wasn't that a bummer?
What?
I'm telling you, that's the only thing that perked me back up was how soft and ebullient my face looked and felt after I shaved with my Harry's. And immediately I got in a better frame of mind, but it was touch and go there for a while. But folks, I'll tell you what, the blades are sharp and the handle is ergonomic. And the foaming shave gel is not only aromatic, but it's slicker than whale shit in an ice flow. And that razor just glides across your face. Well, now, Brian, you've been going for the Grizzly Adams look. I understand you've been growing all of your facial, nose, and ear hairs since 2017. Is that true?
That is not true. I'm very, even when I have a beard, I look kind of neat and nice, I think.
Well, I remember you used to have the edges, kind of like the old cartoons of the devil, where you would have that beard, but the edges would be kind of closely groomed there, and it would come down into a point.
Why don't we talk about that mustache you had in '91 that people love so much?
Well,
where's that variant? I'm going to mark up my new Jim Cornette figure with the Sharpie. I'm going to put a mustache on it.
It was just a rib on me. Actually, I had a rash is what it was. But anyway, folks, we've talked about our friends at Harry's so many times. You want to look nice. You want to feel good. You want a slick face. You want to be able to not only have good smelling deodorant and lotion and body wash and hair gel, but you want to feel like you're somebody. Well, Harry's is going to fix you right up at an unbelievable value. You know, when you go into stores, you get these cartridges these days. They got the ball and chain connected to them. They got to disable it at the checkout counter. Sometimes if you try to walk out of the building with the cartridges, you're instantly electrocuted. People been doing that at Kroger, getting electrocuted trying to steal those things. Because they've got the sensor in them. Well, you don't have to worry about that now. You just go to harrys.com. By the way, there's no apostrophe. It's just HARRYS, no apostrophe, harrys.com. And you can get a 5-blade razor, a weighted handle, the foaming shave gel, and a travel cover all in their trial kit for just $3 when you go to harrys.com. And use the /JCE. I guess that's a promo code too, right?
Yes. Well, I guess
Is a slash a promo code?
No, that is a promo link. The code would be an independent JCE.
Oh, well, it doesn't say independent JCE. It just says JCE. That's it. So it's a slash. So harrys.com. Which it's funny when you think about it, /JCE, and it's a razor company. They're slashers. But nevertheless, harrys.com /JCE You get the trowel kit for $3. It's regular $13. Well, everybody knows how much these razors cost in the store. It's like they're made out of platinum. And this is not the old-fashioned straight razor that they used to use in the Western saloons, folks. You can be drunk and use this, and you can't hurt yourself. Just keep it away from your eyes. Do not try to shave your eyelashes, ladies and gentlemen.
Let's just focus on the areas of your face with beards and mustaches and sideburns, and Harry's can take care of all that in a comfortable and fashionable way.
Yeah, you're talking about in front of your ears there, down under your neck, round to the other side, and people occasionally, the backs of their knuckles need shaved, but don't try to shave your eyelashes. Again, folks, and then if you love the trial kit, you know you're going to for only $3. You can shave yourself multiple times with this thing. It's pennies on the shave. And then you can sign up with the convenient subscription option that you can cancel at any time. And they'll send this to you regularly so you don't run out. And then until you stop growing facial hair. If that happens, then you can cancel. But then if I were you, I'd go to the doctor. And they've got other things like the body wash in the scents of redwood and wildlands and stone and moss and tree and rock and otter. Smells just like an otter's ass. And the extra quality, amazing smelling deodorant for just $5 so you can not smell offensive and at the same time save money. It's all about multi-purposing here. You want to look good, you want to smell good, but you also want to look and smell like you don't spend a lot of money to make yourself look and smell good. Like it's just natural. If you want people to look at you and say, I bet that motherfucker doesn't spend 50 cents on looking good. That's the look you're going for, right? Where it's just natural it comes natural. You're not even artificially trying to look or smell good. Harrys.com/JCE. Right now, $3 for all that stuff you need. What do you need at the Arcadian Vanguard Network this week? A fucking straitjacket? A psychiatrist?
No, we have a good time and we have a good team. We're always looking for more people for the team. But no, we just want to continue doing what we're doing, which is producing the best wrestling content available for free wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Of course, information about all the shows on Twitter at Superpodcast or on Facebook. Facebook.com/Arcadian Vanguard. How fast can I do all this? The Wrestling News! Every day, get your wrestling news for free from the Wrestling News. No paywall, no clickbait, just the Wrestling News. Get rid of the opinions and the star ratings. Get just the facts, ma'am. Go to thewrestlingnews.com directly or wherever you find your favorite podcast. Of course, Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam. Another fine look at 1984, what was happening 40 years ago. Hear it today. McAdamPod.com, or wherever you find your favorite podcast. Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam, and of course, the 605 Super Podcast, The Mothership! Go through the archive, 605pod.com, available wherever you find your favorite podcast, The Mothership. Trying to work on some stuff, but we're also trying to get some sleep. More to come from Arcadian Vanguard and the 605 Super Podcast.
You know, if you're trying to get sleep, I can recommend the Helix Sleep Mattress. Now, you go to helixsleep.com.
What's the promo code?
JCE.